Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. We have some interesting news coming from Russia. This time Andrei Morozov, so-called Murs, the biggest Russian volunteer, decided to leave this world voluntarily. And now I'm gonna tell you why those news are very important for Ukraine, because definitely without him the Russian army is much less capable. What he said on his channel that Russia lost 16,000 of the soldiers KIA during the attack on Avdiivka and around 300 armored vehicles and tanks. We know that those figures are even larger than that. It has already been confirmed by visual information from the drone images and so on. So definitely Russia lost even more, but he said like that, and even those numbers for Russian officials went crazy. At the same time, he says that Ukraine lost much less forces in Avdiivka. After it, the Russian army officials called him to hide this information from public. So what he did, he wrote that I'll better self-execute. That's what he did. I personally think that he left this world on his own will and Russian officials didn't help him, but Russian propaganda did. They didn't like that he said truths about the Russian losses and incompetent Russian command, so he was basically bullied on all of the Russian official propaganda channels. And they even continued to attack him after his death. Basically, he showed the real figures, more or less, for the Russian army losses. That's why they hate him. He was one of the biggest enemies for Ukraine. He created quite a strong volunteer community, which was unique in the Russian Federation. They were first to supply the FPV drones to the Russian army, so he understood the modern vectors of development of the war. They were not just buying stuff for the Russian army, they also were into development of the electronic warfare, for example. Usually Russian volunteers steal some money for them, but this guy was ideologist. He got a similar mindset with Strelkov, for example, Russian imperialism, chauvinism, and basically fascism. For them, Ukraine shouldn't exist and they do everything for it. Not by words, but by real actions. And there are not many volunteers like that in the Russian Federation. In Ukraine, for example, this movement is much more developed. So this loss for Russia is even bigger compared, for example, to the loss of the Russian general. They have lots of the generals, but not many of those kind of the volunteers. I would say that Murs was unique in that. But as you can see, the Russian regime doesn't like that patriots too. They do not like not loyal people in general, and they do everything to eliminate them. It happened with Strelkov, it happened with Navalny. Yes, Navalny is from the other camp, from liberals, but for Putin it doesn't really matter. If you're against official propaganda, if you share your own thoughts about how it should be, and Murs shared truthful information about the Russian command, about Shoigu. In this case, he was very similar to Prigozhin, so the system will do everything to eliminate this kind of the character. It means that the Russian system doesn't really need to win. They need Putin to stay in power for a long time and also to steal money as long as possible with their corrupt management. Again, this volunteer was really effective, and he supplied the drones to some of the Russian unit. That unit was really effective, and without him, that movement would just collapse. So as for Ukraine, those are the great news. Alright, we have some breaking news from Kherson Oblast. Remember, yesterday I told you that one of the Russian bases was attacked by HIMARS. Well, it happened today again to the different Russian base, this time near to Podokalinivka in Kherson region. I cannot show you this video because there is some Russian infantry in the place that was HIMARSed. So to check out all of the information about the case, please go to my Telegram channel, and there you'll be updated not only about it, but about what is happening in Ukraine. It is my personal channel that I created as alternate source for YouTube, let's say. So how many of the Russians were KIA over there? I'm out of clue, but according to the image, quite a lot. Here you see that surveillance drones play a great role in identifying the enemy position and later on sending the coordinates for Mr. HIMARS. It was some sort of the shooting range out there, and there were some of the Russian soldiers. Not some, but many. From the video, I would say that the Russian soldiers are newcomers, probably mobilized soldiers or something like that, because after they were ambushed the first time, the remains of them again went to some sort of the hill and gathered at the same spot and were ambushed again. I do not see any logic in that, but they did it. The area is on the south near to Aleshki Desert. This is the Dnieper River, and the Russian position was somewhere in this place. Till Dnieper it is 24 kilometers, and with a range up to 70 kilometers, it is quite an easy job from HIMARS. So for the second day consecutive, Russia is losing lots of the forces which were ambushed by HIMARS. totally in different areas of the front lines. And what's about Krinky? Well, Russia is losing their forces out there because Ukraine started to use the GLSDB shells to target Russian positions. What I can tell you that this area was targeted with a Russian base out there. As you can see, in general, it's not far away from the front lines. I think that Ukraine is testing now the capability of the gliding shells to use them far behind the front lines because the range of those shells is 150 kilometers, around 100 miles. Oh my god, look who was found, General Commander Gerasimov. Russia released the video today with him how he honored the Russian soldiers who they say took Avdiivka. It's hard to tell when this video was filmed, but probably it's the new one. He was flying somewhere on a helicopter. Because of the exposure, I cannot tell what exactly is happening outside. They always film in some sort of the bunker. This time it's the winter camouflage on the walls. Why should you camouflage the internal of the room? Wallpapers? Well, after all, I think that Gerasimov is fine. There were lots of the rumors about his death, so if you ask me in the comments, sometimes you ask me where is Gerasimov, he is here on the video. But what I know for sure that Russia lost this colonel, the commander of the 36th Infantry Brigade that was ambushed in the Donetsk Oblast yesterday. HIMARS attack as usual. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Russia lost one more fighter bomber jet, Su-34. It was shot down on the south using the Patriot system, allegedly. But Putin tries his best to protect the Russian Air Force. Putin presented Russian military aviation with an icon after losing 7 aircraft in a week. It is the best anti-missile system possible. 7 airplanes in a week, it's just crazy. It is almost half of the Russian production of those airplanes per year. But since 2006, Russia produced many of those airplanes, more than 149. 132 Su-34 and 17 Su-34M modernized version. They have total 40 Su-34M in order, but they have problems with the spare parts which are coming from our Western allies. However, sanctions do not work as they should be, so Russia might try the alternate ways to deliver the spare parts from our Western friends. You see that this figure is great, but believe me, only half of those airplanes are flyable. Many of them are grounded because of the technical reasons. As for the 5th generation, as Russia claims, Sukhoi 57, they have totally 22 and 76 in order. That's a large order. I have great doubts that they are able to produce those number of the jets, sophisticated jets, in the short term. And Russia is still afraid to use them in this war. Now let's go to the military map update. So Russia tried to advance to Terny. They have quite a lot of chances to take it under control in a nearby perspective because Ukraine is still in lack of munition. But this particular Russian attack was stopped by Azov regiment. We have even video about it, how Russian tank advanced to the trench with some of the Russian infantry soldiers, and all of them were kaputted by drones. Great job from Azov, and again, welcome to my Telegram to check more information. One more video, as it was said, from the northern part in Kharkiv Oblast. Russians abandoned their BMPs and those were finished with the drones. The same situation on the east, Russian tanks were abandoned and were kaboomed by the drones. Russian soldiers are so scared to be in the Russian tanks because then they are inside, they are surrounded by the tank shells. And if they ignite, Russian soldiers would just evaporize. Also, Russia is losing many of the supply tracks. According to the recent statistics, they lost for the last week around 15 of the supply vehicles, big supply vehicles, Urals. And here you can see the dangerous goods on board. We don't have it in today's update, but Russians really advanced towards Pobeda. We have it probably for the yesterday's update. Yes, just a gray area advancement, but in general, Russia already took Pobeda, at least partially. We have the confirmation about it from the Maiko 73. He shows that Russia even put their flag in this settlement. However, I wasn't able to find the drone video because he relies on the images from the warfield. But it looks like Russia definitely advanced over there. The latest update of the deep state military map was just released, and here is the Russian movement in Marinka direction. So they want to advance towards Kurakhove and they expand their bridgehead. And also the movement of the enemy was spotted close to the Marinka itself, so it was yesterday and it is today. They moved towards Georgievka. In Avdiivka, Russia also advanced towards Orlivka, so it was yesterday and it is today. They took those lakes, I would say, so yesterday, again, and today. Let's go to the south of Donetsk Oblast to Vuhledar. Russia tries to reach Vuhledar with all of their attempts. Recently they failed over here, but some of the reports saying that Russians managed to take some of the ground in this place, somewhere in here. Also, the Ukrainian military bloggers say that Vuhledar could potentially be encircled by the Russian army. Russians concentrated their forces in two of the directions and would probably use their standard Klaus tactics. We'll see how it goes, but many predict that Russia will start the massive attack in this place, as well as they do now in Robotyne, so potentially Russia might advance further to the north. I heard the opinion from Ukrainian military that the main aim for Russians in this sector is Zaporizhia city, quite a big one divided by Dnieper River. The distance to the city is 42 kilometers. I don't think that Russia is capable for that move right now. They need to cause Ukrainian defense to totally collapse to advance that far, which I think is quite unreal. Budanov also confirmed that Russia is in lack of resources to advance to the border of the Donetsk Oblast and occupy it fully in 2024. He also says that if we obtain enough military support, Ukraine might accumulate its own resources to start a new counterattack, successful this time in 2025. Russia also concentrated lots of the ballistic missiles near to Ukrainian border. We're speaking about the Iskander-M. And we have the bad news that Iran supplied the ballistic missiles to the Russian Federation. Russia delivered it with the help of the Ruslan Antonov 1-4 cargo airplane. Two types of the missiles were delivered, Fateh 110 and Zolfahar, the range of which is around 700 kilometers, quite a lot. They are also very fast, up to 4 Mach, and very, very precise. The precision is up to 5 meters for the big one and 3 meters for the small one. The major news sources have already reported about the case. At the same time, Pentagon representative says that Ukraine now has to choose between what village or what settlement to protect against the Russian assaults because of the lack of resources. Now the problem lies with the House of Representatives. Definitely it is hard for Ukraine because, as you see, Russia obtains lots of the military help from Iran, from North Korea, even though Russia has lots of the military production on its own. Ukraine continued to prepare for the possible Russian intervention into Chernihiv or Kiev Oblast on the north. What can I say? It is awesome, but it should have been done even before the full-scale war had started, especially on the way out from Crimea and obviously on the northern part of Kiev. The news about the Ukrainian pilot training on F-16s, the first group will finish their training till summer, so as you see it takes lots of the time. Here we speak only about the pilot training in the United States, but Ukrainian pilots also train in European countries. The Russian military bloggers shared the images of those boxes. You may guess what is inside. This photo was taken in Avdiivka. Yes, Russian soldiers are coming home. They are happy but tired. The Economist says that European countries are unable to protect themselves without American effort. If somehow Trump wins and under his influence United States would withdraw from NATO alliance, Europe will have big problems. Article says that European countries are very bureaucratized in NATO. They have weak military industry compared to the United States, obviously. They have constant differences of opinion and compete for leadership in NATO, instead of actually preparing for war. Well, from all of the European countries, I see that Poland prepares the most. They even ordered new tanks from South Korea and spent the largest percent of their GDP from all of the European countries for their military. My friends, don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And also, if you want to support my job, you may check out some of the links in the video description just below. Special thanks for my Patreon supporters and for sponsors of my YouTube channel. Thank you guys for your awesome support. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.